All right. Well, Desi.
Did you already start it?
I mean, we're recording.
Oh, sure.
But I mean, we can edit it.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So, you know.
You got to give me a heads up, man.
I didn't want to, I wanted to do it like the way that the doctors do it, where they're just kind of like trying to distract you, and then they give you the little shot before you know it, and then.
Well, just slow down there. How's the hair on your nipples?
Oh, man.
Is it helping?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
it honestly, brother, it'll look at the sweat. You can see the beads in the sweat.
Yeah, because it's just, this is intense. This is intense café con leche, man. My brother hates when I drink coffee because he says that
Are you a slurper?
I'm a slurper.
Are you a slurper?
You know what? You're probably going to hear it on the thing. You're going to hear me go.
I'll knock it out of your fucking hand.
All right, well, welcome to the Desi podcast, the Life as We Know It podcast with Desi Martinez, good friend of mine. Desi, I appreciate you doing this podcast, and actually this podcast idea came out because of you, because we were talking about some stuff that we were trying to do for your law firm.
I was going to say, please explain how I am in the muse for the podcast.
Okay, so we were talking about Adrian, who's one of your friends, right? Mm-hmm. So
Adrian Clark.
Yeah. And who is Adrian Clark?
Adrian Clark is an entrepreneur extraordinaire in the boxing industry, and there's a lot of things that are coming up in his life that I think the world is going to be excited about. I'll let him talk about that when he gets there, but he's somebody I'm very proud to have a relationship with, and somebody I'm very proud to mentor and know, and he's going to do big things.
Yeah. I mean, I think so too. I've met him. He seems like a really cool guy, and so we were talking about ideas, right? Adrian got this new job with a new company, and we were just talking about ideas, and you and I always have like these long marketing discussions and things, and so one of the ideas that I had was like, hey, what if you created a podcast with Adrian where you guys talk about like boxers and their life as a boxer and these things, and maybe you don't remember that.
I do remember that, and I remember going, it's got to be about something other than the law, because you know what I tell you, and I'm going to say it over and over again, nobody gives a shit what an attorney has to say about themselves or about the law,
right.
Which is why I don't understand it, why attorneys always have to have their face on a billboard.
Right.
Nobody wants to see us.
Right.
No, it's not like, oh, that makes it much more interesting. Look at the guy's face with the tie on. I'm going to go to that guy.
Right, that guy looks like he knows what he's doing. I've always said I don't care if my face is on it. I just need clients coming in the door from it. But again, that's another conversation. The reason that I said no podcast is I was like, dude, who's going to listen to it other than my kids when I make them and my mom? Like who cares? Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Well, after that, after you and I had this discussion, I was like, I think that's a really great idea. Then I thought, what if I did a podcast? So I went out and bought a bunch of equipment.
Another one of those thoughts you steal, you take credit for it. Like, oh, Jerry, I'm so smart, man.
Yeah.
I gave you that.
Look at what Yes, over your marketing campaigns, we know who really came up with those ideas.
Right.
We sure do.
I appreciate you letting me do this. I instantly start thinking that it's like a 70s radio show, and I need cigarettes, and my voice drops about 2 octaves.
We should get the glasses with the because you can hear yourself.
Yeah, I hate the way my voice sounds.
Yeah, I know.
This distorted medium. I'm much smoother.
I know.
In real life.
Well, we can always edit it so that you sound super deep.
Okay.
Like on
WKRP and in Cincinnati.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. WNBC.
No, WNBC. I thought I was saying WNBC.
WNBC. All right. So this podcast is Life as We Know It. This is really, really happy that you agreed to do this. I'm told a lot of different people that if you get to know Desi, and you do have you have had billboards with your face on them and things like that, right? And like to your point, as you were saying earlier, People see the face, people see the logo, the name, but they don't really know too much about the attorney. And everybody that I've talked to that knows you, and friends that I've spoken to or that I've met through you, all tell me the same thing. If people, Desi's such a cool guy, I think, it's important for people to understand the type of individual that Desi is, because if they did, whenever it is that they would need a lawyer, they'd feel pretty comfortable in working with you. So I appreciate you coming in today. And well, actually, I'm at your house and we're outside for those that might just be listening. But yeah, so tell me kind of about your upbringing, man. Like how, talk to me about what life was like, your mom and your dad. And
well, I don't know if you want to leave it that open, because honestly we can go on for hours. I moved around a lot. There is no one place that I'm from. I call San Antonio home now, and our base is South Texas, Laredo, but there's not a lot, it's not a very uncommon story, but at the end of the day there's just a lot to it. I was if we want to do kind of Tom Sawyer, I was born, so literally I was fighting to get out of the womb. I don't know if I told you this or not. I was born 2 months premature because the umbilical cord was wrapping around my neck, because I wouldn't stop moving. Like I literally wouldn't stop moving in the womb. And I'd like to think that it was just, I was fighting to get out. Mm-hmm. So I kind of I always thought I was 1 month premature, which I could live with. I found out I was 2 months premature, which is why. So the first thing that happened when they took me out, I was blue and I was hairy. I don't know if you knew that. 2 months premature babies are blue and hairy.
No way.
I was blue and hairy, and my dad's a pretty honest guy, and the first thing he did was, that's not my kid. He was like, that's not my kid. What the hell is that? It looks like a raisin with hair. So my mom, of course, is really young at the time. He goes and he tells her, he goes, there's something wrong with him. And she starts crying instantly. So instead of like, oh, beautiful baby's born, let's hug my baby. Oh, no. My mom's like, oh, she's crying while she's holding me the first time. Gosh. Because my dad, in his brutal honesty. And then so the joke goes, this was post-Vietnam. I was born right after my dad got back from Vietnam. Of course, we didn't have a lot of means. He was still, kind of around early buck private. He just got out of the war. So we weren't really making any money. So
and your parents were really young when they had you?
They were. They got married right out of high school. Mm. So they were still in their early 20s struggling. The joke was because we didn't have money for a crib, I used to sleep in the drawer right next to the bed. And there's pictures of me sleeping in the drawer. And one of the things that they would say is if the ugly baby got too fussy, they close the drawer. Now, Greg, that's, and again, I can laugh now, but I remember when I was younger, that kind of affected my psyche. I was like, all right, well, I'll stay quiet. I'll be talking when you leave, but I'll be quiet right now. So it was just one of those things where that's where kind of life started in Fort Hood, Texas, in Killeen. And
so your dad was in the military?
Dad was in the military during those years, and we moved around. I started school in Germany with the German kids because my mom wanted me out of the house at 4. So I actually started school early because they start school early.
In like a German
school.
It's not like you were like on base and it was in English.
No, this was in the German school because we lived on the economy. And although my mom didn't speak Spanish or English, I don't think she got that it was a German-only school because she didn't speak English. So I was like, yeah, take his ass, So I remember, because that was my buddy. I used to hang out with my mom all day because my brother was already in school. And I just remember telling her, I'm going to be good. Don't send me. She was like, no, you're going. And then she doesn't believe I have memories from when I was really small, but I do. I remember things very vividly. Mm-hmm. One of the gifts that I've been given, I remember things from when I was young. She's like, no, you don't. I said, yeah, I do, man. I remember what you were wearing. Let me tell you the story. Anyways, I remember the first day of school walking in and with the German kids. And in my mind, for some reason, I swear they spoke English. Like, I'm almost positive they spoke English. They always called me Daisy because they couldn't say Desi.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I remember walking through the school and saying hi to me, and it just seems like we were having like a real communication. I don't remember them speaking German. But anyways, I remember going to school with the Germans, starting off 4 years old in kindergarten, and then later I started off with the American schools, and we left Germany and moved back to Laredo, and that's when kind of the family went to pot.
And how long were you in Germany for?
So then it was 3 years, and then we moved to Laredo, and then that's where my family's from. My mom and dad are from the same neighborhood of Guadalupe. They're in Laredo, and they literally grew up a block away from each other.
Wow.
So they've known each other since they were 8. And even, you know, through the divorce and everything, they're still friends. You know, they've honestly, they're first friends. So, I mean, you don't ever lose that relationship.
Right.
So it's weird for me to see them speaking, because again, they divorced when I was young.
How
But I
old were
forget
you?
their friend. I was around 6 to 8. You know, that whole drama going on with the divorce. It takes for a while, and then the day or the night happens when you know the family's going to split up, and then you move out. We actually moved to Mexico for a month or so. But at the end of the day, you know, the split up happened, and my mom said this. And you got to remember, all she knew was life with our family, and then her brothers and sisters that lived in the same neighborhood. And she said, "I'm taking my sons out of here. You know, they're my whole world, and they're not going to have a shot in Laredo, and they're going to grow up with the bad influences, and I got to get them out of here." So she literally made the choice to leave everything she knew in Laredo for us, and we moved back to Fort Hood. And that was a whole different experience of poverty, because if you can imagine an immigrant mother who had never worked, didn't drive, didn't speak the language, like we really had some rough years in a predominantly Anglo area, and but we made the best of it. So we were kind of that pioneering Mexican family there in Killeen, Fort Hood back in the early 80s, and my mom used to work at the local high school as a janitor. Unbeknownst to me, and this was a different time, she used to take night shifts as well, so while I was sleeping, she'd go work other shifts. Wow. And that was financially a really hard time, but I was happy. You know, she is a mother through and through. That's all she ever wanted to be. That's all. She's happy with that. So she, you know, again, she raised us to still be happy no matter what the circumstances were. And then we met my stepdad, Joe. She got remarried to him, and he had 2 sons from a previous marriage. And then so we became a very dysfunctional Brady family. I'm not kidding. A very, very dysfunctional Mexican Brady family with 4 boys. And we got into a lot of trouble and got them into a lot of trouble. And I've got to apologize.
Were they about the same age as you? The other
actually,
boys?
yeah. No, my stepbrother Joey is my age. Like, we're 4 months apart. We're the same age. And of course, we became really, really good friends on top of that. He's my best friend. And then my youngest brother, Eric, he was kind of, man, that dude was a handful. Yeah. To say the least, that dude was a handful. There was a lot of drama, but honestly, my stepdad, Joe, I always say this, he kind of saved us because we were starting to grow, my brother and I, and we were starting to realize we're poor. Like, we're poor. I don't like being poor. And we're going to do some stuff to get us out of being poor. And when you're trying to figure out as a young man who you are, and you don't really have the guidance of a father, and you realize you're in a bad situation, like, we were about that age where we were about to start getting in trouble if there wasn't more, you know, if there wasn't more to help us find, I guess, a normal life. So he came along, and I always say that he kind of saved us. And I'm really close to my stepdad now, I think. But yeah, there were a few years there where there was a lot of clashing with the stepbrothers, and funny ass stories of us chasing each other around the neighborhood, trying to, like, me running them down to try to beat them up. I mean, just ridiculous things. But we're all really close now, and unfortunately, our youngest brother doesn't live in San Antonio. He lives up north.
Okay, so and how old were you when your stepdad?
About 11.
Okay.
About 11.
Okay, so your mom was single mom, doing it all by herself from about the time you were about 8. For 3 years. 3 to 4 years, yeah. They started getting married and all that stuff. But yeah. So I'll tell you this, man. Joe won my heart over with food. So that's the easiest way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Well, no, dude. It was like throwing a pit bull a steak, because it was one of those things where I was completely distracted. He was trying to date my mom, and you know, of course, you know, this is all I had in my life with my mom and my brother. So we were viciously protective of one another, and I wasn't going to allow this dude come around. I wasn't going to allow him to come around. So he would show up, and and he'd still tell you stories. I was kind of weird and quiet and shy and shit. And I'm just sitting there looking at him the whole time and not saying hi to him and staring at him. And I remember he's smart, man. He showed up one morning. It was a Sunday, and me being the weirdo that I was, like I was already up. It was like 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning. I was already up, whatever, doing whatever.
Right.
And my mom's still sleeping. My brothers are still sleeping, and he shows up because he's a soldier. He wakes up at 5 every morning. He still does. Drinks all the damn coffee in the house, and he shows up with 2 boxes of Dunkin' Donuts. Right. I'd never had a donut.
Ever.
I'd never had a donut. We had pan dulce, and we couldn't afford it anyway, so I'd never had a donut. I just knew they looked delicious, right? So he shows up with 2 boxes of donuts, the steak, right? The steak for the dogs. And then I remember I'm sitting there looking at him, I'm not saying anything to him, and he goes, you can have them, Mico. I'm going to go talk to your mom. And he puts them on the table. And at that point, I don't give 2 craps if he's go talk to my mom. I'm looking at him. And he goes, just eat as many as you want. Just leave one, leave one for your mother and brother and your mom. Or your mother and your brother and me. Okay, cool. This is 2 dozen donuts. This is 24 Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh my God.
And I remember just, kind of almost shaking when I grabbed one because it looked so delicious. And I ate one and it was like, and I was like, oh, that went down so smooth. And I remember I grabbed another one and then literally the next 5 minutes is a blur, bro, because I remember going like I had sprinkles and chocolate all in my hair and in my ears, like there was a cookie monster. Like I remember, like I had lost. I remember everything. I don't remember those 5 minutes. All I remember is I couldn't stop myself. So at the end of the day, what ends up happening, like my thinking, my brain kicks in when I see there are like 2.5 donuts left. And then it hit me like, I had to leave. What did I do? Leave 3. I had to leave 3. Done? There's only 2.5. I haven't even had any milk. I was like, and I remember going, donuts are delicious. and to this day, like I forbid people from bringing donuts to the office. Now, again, what I say at the office a lot of times is met with, so it's one of those things where they bring them on purpose just to make me go, damn it, who brought the donuts? Who brought all these donuts? Yeah, so anyways, I have a donut problem, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, and I've joined groups, and I've, I've sat there talking about donuts, but, it's just one of those things in life that it's like an ingrained issue that I have.
It's like your first real addiction.
Yeah, it's donuts. And I just stay away from them, I'm about 5 days donut free, and
congratulations. Just keep it up. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, it's deep rooted trauma, man. So that was that time, and believe it or not, we left Fort Hood, we left Colleen, where we had been there for 4 years at that time, and then we moved back to Germany. That was a beautiful time. We stayed there for 3 years. And then we leave Germany and go back to El Paso. And by this time we're young, teenagers, 15, 16, just the early 90s. And that's where I graduate high school. And being so close to Juarez, and then it being the time that it was, we were basically given, free reign to do what we want as young men, because my mom trusted us. And I always think hindsight 2020, you probably shouldn't have trusted us that much because we were doing a lot of things we shouldn't have been involved in. So thank God we ended up leaving there. My dad gets stationed in Oklahoma. I wash out of college football, which had been what I was, trying to do at the time, is just play football. I loved the aggressiveness of it and getting all the anger out.
What'd you play? What was your position?
At that time, I'm not the world's biggest guy, but I'm a little bit bigger than your average Mexican. So I was on the line. I was a nose guard. Okay. And they were transitioning me to a middle linebacker, but I've got heavy feet, but I was a nose guard and a center, and I loved it. I loved it. I think it was pure aggression. I'd lose my mind, like with the donuts. Like I'd lose my mind. They couldn't give me plays because I would lose my mind. Like I remember the last game I played, they just said, Desi, just go do what you do. I was like, I couldn't be coached that well because I would lose my mind. But anyways, washed out of that, and then there was a university at the place where my dad was going to be stationed, Fort Sill, called Cameron University, and I was just given a second chance to play and then a second chance to go back to school, and this time I was getting older, and I realized that I really do need to take that opportunity seriously. And even though it wasn't a very hard college to get into, I think any school is what you take of it. What you again, there's good professors everywhere. It's what you make of the opportunity. And then from there, I went to law school at the University of Oklahoma. And then I kept on moving after that. And my mom moved here to San Antonio because this is where my dad wanted to retire. And this is eventually, after moving to Florida and continue to move around and start businesses across, different parts of the country and being a professor and blah, 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 I ended up here.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. In the summers in college and law school, my brothers actually lived in Austin. I literally lived half the year in Austin, half the year in Oklahoma. And, again, Austin was, at least at the time.
During college?
During college and during law school, I'd spend most of my time in Austin and then go back to Oklahoma to go to school.
Wow. So was school kind of like, were you always a really great student? Because, I mean, obviously, for the people that are in law or anybody who's attempted to get into law school, from what I understand, is extremely difficult. Like you have to be, you have to be very studious, and you have to just read a lot. But were you always academically, were you a academic enthusiast?
Not at all, man. Not at all. I was relatively lazy through high school, and it didn't help that I played a lot of sports, because at the time, honestly, my grades were kind of given to me. It was a given I was going to pass. I was going to stay eligible. And that didn't help my laziness as far as academics. And then on top of that, again, you've got to understand, if I'm being raised by a single mom and a stepfather and things like that at the time, I was a young teenager, I didn't communicate a lot with them. It's not like a lot of importance was put on school, so I wasn't a great student. I think I wasn't dumb, right, but at the end of the day, I was lazy. So when I got to college, I didn't have good study habits, but it was kind of easy for me because I stepped into a major that I think was kind of catered to what I was good at. And then I also had friends that, thankfully, and girlfriends that were good students, and they taught me good study habits. But I still wasn't ready for law school, and this is what I say about law school to everybody. It's not that minorities are at a disadvantage. It is this. If you've got the brain matter to get into a good law school, you've got it. You've got the ability to think critically. The difference is this, and it's kind of like a race. It's like a quarter horse race, okay? All the horses that are at the quarter horse races, they're thoroughbreds, man. They've got the ability to be there. The distinction is the training and the trainers and the jockey. That's what makes a great quarter horse, is the ability to pull that talent out, right? So when you start in law school, I think that people that are in a good law school have that ability. They're quarter horses, right? But what's the difference? A lot of the guys that I went to law school with, well, their parents were attorneys, and their parents were millionaires, and their parents had money, and they had educations and higher degrees. So the conversations they would have, right, at around the dinner table were about those things that led up to them going on their own path. But they had that foundation, that background, that training. Somebody like me, whose mom her head hurts when she reads it, like, I Nico, read it for me, my head hurts. I'm like, no. Like, that wasn't really stressed on us, so I didn't really have those good habits starting out in law school, because that wasn't something I picked up in life. Do you understand? Yeah. It wasn't, I mean, we can go lift weights if you want, but I can't. It was picking up good study habits to get ahead in law school. I didn't really start understanding that until maybe a year or 2 years into it, but I still relied on, man, I still got the brain power.
Right.
Well, that isn't enough when you're running with a bunch of thoroughbreds.
Right.
Those guys are ahead. And I started realizing I've got to steal their knowledge of how to become a better student.
Right.
And I kind of started off behind, and I think that's a common story for a lot of minorities. That's what we're calling, us nowadays. They just haven't been given the tools to get to that place when they start law school, and sometimes it takes us a little longer to get there. Yeah. So
were those principles, and it's just like football, right? Studying and all of these things, it requires technique. You need to know what to do so that you can be really great at it. But were any of those principles, obviously working hard, seeing your mom work hard, I'm pretty sure that was sort of instilled in you. What were some of the other things that, sounds like you grew up on a lot of, bases, and your dad was military, and you kind of grew up around that. Were those kind of influential things that shaped you into getting into law school? Did those things kind of help you?
One of the beautiful problems that I was allowed to have growing up was shyness. Like after my dad left, I was confused. Like I was a weirdo. I'm not even gonna deny. Like I was weird. and I was very quiet. It wasn't because I was scared. It was more so because I didn't think anybody really wanted to hear what I had to say. So it would leave me watching things. I would watch a lot. Like I would watch and I would pay attention, and then sometimes understandings would come to me about what's going on. So the reason I say it's a beautiful problem, you might look at it now and go, oh, you know, poor kid, he was so shy, didn't, you know, that's horrible. No, man, it was great because again, that allowed me to really try to figure things out on my own. Do you understand? So although somebody's not having the conversation with me, explaining to me what's going on, I was able to absorb a lot of information. So what I did see, you know, from the soldiers was discipline. That's one of the tenets I think of success. You have to be disciplined. You have to have the talent. That's something you're born with or you're not born with. But again, from my mom, I would see the hard work. That's one of the tenets of success, right? From my dad, I would see strength. You know, so it's just one of those things where it wasn't like there was a blueprint for being successful. You know, if we want to call it success.
You need to do this. You need to do this.
Right. Nobody put it together for me. I would just kind of, I always call life a buffet. I would take the different parts of that person that were inspirational. And then I just kind of started figuring it out on my own because I was lucky enough to be quiet to just watch. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And then when it came my time, I just started putting it together on my own. I'm not a self-made person. I don't say, oh, yeah, it was me all by myself. I learned by watching, though. Why?
Right.
Because I had no choice.
Right.
So nobody sat down and explained it to me at the dinner table.
Right. Like they didn't draw a map out for you. You just kind of had to
And honestly, in studying, like you, studying people, right? You read people, you study them, you watch them. This person's different than that. Kind of the same thing. I've like you said, it takes a certain person to be successful in law school to get right. And I kind of believe, not the opposite, but it's bigger than that. You can take somebody that's successful in the law, you can take somebody that's successful in sports, you can take somebody that's successful in boxing management. Look at their qualities. They're the same across the board. It's just a different industry. Do you understand? So it's one of those things where whatever it takes to be successful here, I guarantee you, if you had that drive to do it here in the law, I guarantee you'd be successful as long as you transfer those. And I started realizing that as well. All this drive and desire that I had to be a good football player, and there's some ridiculous stories of the stuff that I do just to try to be better. Transfer that into the law, man. Transfer that, but I have to have a desire for it.
Right.
And I think I have found that desire in trial work. Like I love it. Like it is my audience. Like it is my.
That's your football field,
dude. It's exhilarating. I love it. I love being there. I love being in front of a jury. I love speaking on somebody's behalf. I love defending people, meaning that being the voice, the mouthpiece for somebody next to me. Like I love being in trial. It's the same as a tackle to me now. Like I used to love hitting the shit out of people. Loved it.
It was just like adrenaline rush.
It was me against you. Somebody's will's gonna bend. Again, that I didn't understand that was part of the aggression I had from growing up. That's how I would let it out. But now, again, that adrenaline has been replaced by, thankfully, something that my back can live with, and that's trial work. I love being in trial, and those are those reasons. Like it's replacing that I guess that not aggression, but that just kind of love
that
for
desire to
It's replacing what my heart desires. It's no longer tackling. It's now being in trial, giving and speaking and persuading people.
Right. Yeah. And I was gonna say, I mean, that aggressive nature that you had on the football field sounds like you've just kind of transferred that kind of aggressiveness or that willingness to express yourself at court, right? Yeah.
Well, and it's a bunch of stuff, man. So here's something. Trial attorneys have, we're a buzzword society now, right? A lot of trial attorneys have picked up the phrase warrior. We call ourselves warriors, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. Have you ever had somebody pull a knife on you? You ever had? I mean, have you really ever stood toe to toe with somebody that the warrior culture? That's a different kind of adrenaline, brother. That's a different place. But I do understand the thinking behind it because, again, if you've ever stood in front of a jury about to open your mouth, that's the same feeling you get. Just like you're about to start a fight and somebody's about to hit you in the mouth. Like you freeze up, your brain goes blank, and you're sitting there trying to catch your breath. That is the same feeling. There is an amount of fear that has to be overcome to start speaking. So I do get the analogy between trial attorneys and warriors. And to me, it's again, like I being an Army kid, I know real warriors. That's a little bit different, my friend, than being a trial attorney.
Right. But I think, to your point, it's like that ability to have the courage to do it regardless of the fear, right?
Right.
And I think I read somewhere, or maybe I read a book or something. I can't remember where I had heard it, but it said, courage is not about
it's not the lack of fear.
It's not the lack of fear. It's having the fear and doing the right thing anyway.
Doing it in spite of the fear.
Right.
And I agree with that. And I see the analogies, but it's kind of one of those things. I think that, again, I look back at this checkered life. I think it prepared me for these moments. And we have a lot of conversations as trial attorneys, and I work with a good group of guys that we learn off of each other. And one of the exercises we had one time was we literally had to pick an object out in the room and talk about it in relationship into why it's speaking to us. It's trust me, it's a lot deeper than just that. But I remember picking the picture of a wolf. Believe it or not, it was a painting of a wolf, and he was running alongside of a river, and there was this weird kind of fluorescent light that he was chasing, and it didn't make any sense, right? But that picture, I remember, spoke to me because I kind of felt like the wolf. Not for any other reason that this wolf, you could tell his tongue was wagging, and he was just kind of chasing it and kind of smiling and laughing, but he was still a wolf. And I remember thinking that's kind of been this journey of mine. I'm thrilled to be here. I love being in this place where I've been given the ability to be a trial attorney and see the things that I've seen and do the things that I do and help the people that I help. And I'm just enjoying it, right? But at the end of the day, I'll bite your damn head off if I have to. I'm still, again, It's just one of those things where that picture spoke to me because you could see that wolf didn't belong, but he was as happy as a day is long to be there. Right. But at the end of the day, he's still a wolf. He's still a wolf. Yeah. So I remember that picture still, and that was up in Wyoming. We were at a ranch that Jerry Spence owns, just working with other trial attorneys. But it was I still think about that painting. I was like, that's kind of funny. I remember a buddy of mine was saying, that's cool. That's awesome. And so you graduate. You're an attorney now. What happens? What happens after that? What do you do? Oh man, I'm still lost. Like, honestly, only because there were a few things I saw in law school that I didn't like, and unfortunately, I allowed those to kind of take over just my thought process about the practice of the law. One of the things, it's kind of, we say this now in the practice. Sometimes paralegals are more lawyerly than lawyers. Sometimes nurses are more doctorly than doctors. Law students are a caricature of attorneys, and they do the things that people think that attorneys do. So they're very, unfortunately, I found a lot of pretentiousness. I found a lot of ego stroking. I found a lot of, this is me, dog. This is me, dog. And I'm like, guys, you're in law school. You literally are making no money. You've literally helped nothing or nobody just yet. Chill out. And I got kind of so tired of being around that, just speaking about themselves. I got this, I believe I got this trait from my mom. I just couldn't stand the pretentiousness. So I literally left the law. Like, I went searching for something else. And that's when I, went to go work for the university that I went to college at. And I was lucky enough to find a job there. And I was an administrator, an advisor, a professor. And I enjoyed it. It just, I knew it kind of wasn't my thing. I really did enjoy it. And one day I'd like to go back to teaching. But at the end of the day, I knew it wasn't for me at that time. And then so I moved to Florida, and one of my best friends in life, he and I started a business out there. He was from there. We did really well. I was a bachelor. And don't let my wife watch this part. Like, I enjoyed being a bachelor in Florida at the time of my life. And we just had, a good 2-3 year run. But the issue was that, I get a phone call from my mom one day, which again is the most important person in my life, her and my brothers, and my dad, my stepdad. But she is it. She's at the pinnacle of everybody's life. And I didn't have any kids at the time. She said, hey man, you remember you said you were going to come home one day? And I said, yeah, Mom, I remember one day. And she goes, well, no, it's time. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? And she was like, well, they found a tumor in my pancreas. They had just found it on routine blood work. So pancreatic cancer is 99.9% fatal, right? Yeah. So I remember I literally threw my clothes in the back of my truck. I threw everything else in my place in the trash, or I sold it. And then I got on the road the next day, and I came to San Antonio with literally without a pot to piss in, just to go, just
How old were you at this time?
I am now 32, and I remember I got a license to practice law in Florida at the time and a license to practice law in Oklahoma, but I literally had no job, no connections, nothing. And I moved to San Antonio, and it's basically to take care of my mom, but it was, again, God works in mysterious ways. I thought I was down in the dumps. It was one of those times where I was broke. I had nothing. And literally the thing that I did have in my life was disappearing, because of course we were scared. This was a fatal disease. So it was from that moment that I moved here that honestly San Antonio kind of started exploding. I really do feel before 2005 San Antonio was kind of a sleepy, big, boring town, and I didn't want to be here. I really didn't. I'd moved here from Florida, which was great, and then everything starts changing. They find oil. Actually, the economy dries out, but the industries in San Antonio are protected. They started renovating the south side of town, and that was when I started kind of, my own practice, and it was just a great opportunity at the right time. And then my mom got better. They actually operated and took 90% of her pancreas. They caught it in time enough, and she was living with 10% of her pancreas.
Wow.
But honestly, she's in better shape now than she was before the tumor. But that was how I ended up here. And I remember spending every single waking moment at the job force applying for a job. I had applied at every law firm that was hiring, even law firms that weren't hiring. Like I kind of, listened to the voices in my head and listened to God and said, where are my talents? And I realized it's in the law, man. Stop avoiding it, come to it. And I realized that's where my talents are that I've been given, and I wanted back in. I was getting in no matter what.
Right.
But nobody would hire me. I didn't know anybody, and I didn't have any experience. So it was the best thing that could have happened, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't have had my own law firm. So it's weird kind of how things, like in most things, my life makes no sense the way that this office came together. But I applied at the back. We don't even have want ads. We don't even have newspapers anymore, right?
Yeah.
So there was a want ad, and it was there on the newspaper.
There's like a little, just like kind of like
a want ad, bro. It was this big. It literally said legal assistant needed. That's it. Phone number. And I remember feeling defeated. I already had a job working night shift at a group home, and I had a job grading papers, and I was like, I got to get in the legal field. So I called, and it ends up being the office manager I have now, and my wife is working there, and it was a law firm that was looking for a legal assistant. And I didn't want to apply for that. I felt it was a little beneath me, but I was like, screw it, I just need to get in. So I remember I interviewed with them, and my wife is actually, this is funny.
Well, at the time, not your wife.
She's not my wife, but I think she instantly wanted to be my wife. So
she's like, I'm going to marry him.
I show up for this $10 an hour job, and there's nothing insulting about it, but I remember just thinking, I've got 2 licenses, bro. Okay. I'm a lawyer, dude, but okay, I'm going to do it. I don't care. I'm not going to have this pride on my face. And I remember interviewing and telling this guy, the office manager, who is now my office manager, and the attorney.
John.
Yeah. I remember telling him, I said, look, man, I'm not here to interfere. I'm not here to tell you what the law is. All I'm here to do is work and to show you my worth. If you need your car washed, I'll wash your car. You need a ditch dug, I will dig that ditch. I don't care what it is, I'll do it. Just please give me a chance. And they're like, well, how much do you require an hour? I said, look, dude, I have 2 jobs. I work already 12 hours a day. In order to commit my time to this law firm, I'd really like to quit one of my jobs. If you can pay me $12 an hour, then I promise you I will work as hard as I can for you. I just need to be able to quit one of my jobs. And the attorney goes, yeah, I don't know, we can do that. And I remember going, and then John looked at him. And goes, well, I'll call you. He was like, I'll call you. And then one day, I remember going, good gosh, man, I'm not worth $12 an hour. I'm not worth it. I said, it's cool, man. I'll find my way. So anyways, I started harassing, started calling. And while I'd been interviewing in there, my wife, Jessica, kept on coming out to the reception area. And then her and her best friend, who now works with us as well, kept on coming out, finding a reason to come out to the reception area. Yeah, I'm not, I play country dumb a lot, but I'm not that dumb. So I'm sitting there going, Yeah, I know what you girls are doing. Just ask for my number. I already know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're doing here. I know you want some of this, right? So, but again, I was there and I'm reading an article about Abraham Lincoln, and it always sticks in my head the phrase that he had said, because he was exactly my age at the time when he was this article
when
they
wrote
were taking place. Yeah, when he didn't write it. It was about him, but he had written in his diary, and they put it in the article. And he had said, "I have accomplished nothing in my life up to this moment that the world would ever know I was here." And I remember going, "Damn, Abe was feeling the same way at my age," because remember, Honest Abe had lost every election ever up until the time he was elected to the government and as a senator, and then he became president. He had lost everything. Everything. 16 different elections. Like, he had lost everything, and he was feeling defeated, and damn it, I understood that at that moment. But it was just kind of a little bell in my ears. The reason I mentioned my wife is not to embarrass her, but even though I'd interviewed and John wanted to hire me, they still weren't going to hire me. And Jessica, as the office, kind of like the assistant office manager at the time, simply went in and goes, "Look, hire that dude. I know you don't want to. I know you fear you're paying for too much, but we've had enough bad employers. Hire that dude." But she already, her wheels were already turning. She was like, "Hire that dude," and then she got her claws in me. And she got her claws in me. But that was the reason that I ended up being hired, and then a year later, that office, with a lot of other weird coincidences, if you want to call them that, blessings, we ended up opening our own firm.
And so how old were you when you opened up your own firm?
30, I want to say 32, 33, brother. Somebody over 40, I'm losing years here, brother. I don't even know what today is.
I know, me neither.
But I want to say 32 or 33.
Okay, so you were at that firm for what, a year or 2 years?
About 6 months.
6 months.
I was there for 6 months, and then we left to another firm as a group, and then we realized that guy wasn't working out for us, and it literally came the moment where John, Jessica, and I, and one more person sat there, and they go, "We're never going to make it with this guy. Desi, what do you think?" And I was like, "Well, I'm married now. I've got a kid on the way. I'm not making much here, and I don't think we'll ever make it with the guy that we're working with. I kind of know his character at this point."
You liked your odds.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go. And there were doubts, of course, but we had good relationships with a lot of people, and we had, I promised, and this is something I say, and I think it's true to this day, and it always will be true. We can't control anything around us. We can't control the people around us or how they feel. We can't control the circumstances. All we can control is how hard we work. So it was just kind of one of those resolutions, kind of a pact. You work your ass off every day, every night to make this work, and with God's blessings, we'll be okay. And that's kind of what we started off with, was hard work, determination, and a prayer. And it ended up working out. Within a year, we had 10 employees, and now
really?
Yeah. It just started growing.
Escalating.
Now, paying those people, that was a different, but we needed them to help us with the clients that were coming in. So that was 2006, man. So what year are we in now?
We're in 2020.
I think everybody's tried to forget this year. So we're 14 years in. We're at over 20-something employees, 20-plus employees. And it's just continued to grow, and we've continued to be blessed, man. And our relationships have really, saved us during the lockdown.
So let's go back real quick to Jessica. Jessica, she's chasing you down, right? You're the mouse, she's the cat. And maybe a little bit of vice versa, right?
Yeah.
But how long before you all got married? Like, what was that dynamic like? Because the spouse having the same business with the spouse, that I would imagine that could be challenging. But like, how did that dynamic start, and kind of where are you all at?
We were blessed with that, man. So I do think that it's hard for couples to work together, because it's hard for them to leave home at home and work at work, right? I mean, there is a different dynamic from the workplace as opposed to the home, right? Jessica, we were blessed because Jessica, her family actually has a very successful restaurant business, and she grew up in that environment, so she saw her parents navigate that, and she was involved in it, and all of her brothers and sisters work for the restaurants and own restaurants. So it's one of those things where she it was ingrained in her. Remember, a habit was ingrained in her very early. This is how you are at work. This is how you are at home. don't cross the two and things will work out. And honestly, it's worked out great for us. You know, it might be weird to other couples, but it's worked out for us.
That's
you know,
great.
we work well together. Now, how I think you asked another question. How did
What's the dynamic?
What's the dynamic? So I'll give you this dynamic, and it works for us. And it kind of she knows I tease her, and like I said, she is a better mate than I could have ever written down for me. Like, I remember praying for the right person to come along, especially when I was lost. You know, when things were going bad. And it's weird, the gift God gives you. It's not what you're asking for a lot of times. It's what you need. So what she was more than I could ever wish for, and by that I mean she's been my ride or die in every single sense of the word, because she understands there's just different dynamics to our relationship. There's a different relationship at home than there is at work. And at work it's one thing, and she's my backup, and so is John, and so are the very loyal employees we have. But at home we just have an old, very traditional relationship that works for us, because again, it's kind of how we were raised. It's how my mom raised me. It's how her parents raised me, and it works for us. And we found each other, and that's the way we raise our kids. I'll tell you this story, and I'm going to tease her because again, it might explain just kind of, you know, how we are as a family. So her dad is very old school, and I love him to tears, and I laugh because he buys me gifts during my birthday and Christmas and things like that, where he doesn't buy anybody gifts.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
He doesn't even buy his own daughters, which he loves, you know, to no end.
You're his favorite.
He doesn't. Yeah, I'm his favorite, and I tell everybody that because again, it's true. I don't lie. It's true. I'm his favorite, and I love that man to no end as well. He's been like a second father to me. So when I wasn't allowed to stay in the family home. They have this big, beautiful home. I wasn't allowed to stay in the home when I would go visit. I would literally have to stay in a hotel, and then I'd come have lunch and dinner with everybody, and I'd go back to my hotel. So Jessica would stay in the home, and when we first got married, I was allowed to stay in the home. Mijo is coming to the home, right? So I remember, you know, my father-in-law is not going to, like, hey, Mijo's asleep, nobody bother him. We get up at 4 or 5 to open the restaurants, but I'm going to stay here on Saturday with him, and you guys be quiet when you're waking up. Mijo's asleep. So I remember kind of waking up late. Everybody's gone, and I'm like, where, you know? And he was like, and he's sitting on the couch waiting for me because he wants to go hang out. I'm like, all right, cool. So I go, give me 2 seconds. Remember, I've been a bachelor for 33 years, so I've got my T-shirt, and I'm going to iron. I'm going to take a shower, and hey, we're going to take off and have some guy fun, right? So I'm walking across in front of him, and he's laying on his couch with his arms spread out, and he's like, Mijo, take your time. Everybody's gone. Just do what you got to do. And I'm like, okay, let me iron, man, and then we'll get going. And he goes, why didn't Jessica iron that? I said, brother, don't worry about it, man. I cook for myself. I clean for myself. She can't iron anyways, man. I'll be back. You know, so I go and I iron, and I remember as I'm walking away, he's like, Yaka! And then my mother-in-law comes running to his side, and he's like, and I'm like, this is kind of weird. Not, you know, I'm not paying attention to it. Mm-hmm. So I iron my shirt, and then I come back in front of him to go to the room. He's like, Mijo, Jessica's ready to iron your shirt. And I said, Suegro, don't even worry about it, man. She doesn't know how to use the water and the steam iron. I got it, brother. I'll be back in a minute. Vieja! And then she comes yelling. She comes running back. He's like, and then it's just kind of weird, right? So anyways, 2 seconds later, I'm sitting there and I'm putting on my shirt, and Jessica comes into the room and she is in tears, brother. And I'm like, hey, we just got married, man. I'm not screwing up. What are you crying about? I don't know how to handle this, man. I'm not good at crying. Mm-hmm. She knows this. I'll shut right up when she's crying. Like, doesn't matter how mad we are, whether we're in the heat of battle. Mm-hmm. If she starts crying, I shut up. I'm like, I don't know what to do with it.
Right.
Like a puppy, I don't know how to touch it. So I don't know what to do with her. And I'm like, what's wrong, man? She goes, you don't tell my dad I don't know how to iron. You don't say that in this house. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, you don't iron your shirt in this house without, checking with my dad. And I said, whoa, man, I didn't know that. I've never been allowed to stay here. I'm sorry. Here, go iron it. So we laugh. We laugh at that, but it goes on to another story, man. We're here. We just moved in. And Diego, our oldest boy, he's still about a year old, and he's a handful because we're starting the firm. Mm-hmm. We just bought the house. We're looking for lease space. We just had a baby. We really don't know each other that well. We just got married. Like, life is a lot of pressure at the time. Mm-hmm. And my mom's still getting over her sickness. Remember, she had just had her pancreas replaced. Right. So there was a lot of pressure. I just didn't know, because sometimes I shut it off and I just, I'm on machine mode. I'm just going and I'm not paying attention. I gotta go.
Yeah, just
that's the habit.
Next thing.
Right. I don't have time to think about it. I've just got to go. So remember, the only thing I can control is me, so I'm gonna go. She starts crying. We're about to, I'm about to cook something to eat, and that's a whole other story. I'm about to cook. She comes up and she's crying. She's like, Desi, you don't wake up with the baby. And I said, Jessica, I've tried to wake up with a baby. You wake up anyways. Why do both of us got to get up? If you're going to get up no matter what, even if I get up and say stay asleep, you're still going to get up. So go ahead. You can have it. You can wake up, right? And she's like, that's not nice. You don't help me with the baby. And I said, what do you want me to do? I tried to wake up, I take care of him, I take him off. I'm like, what do you want me to do? And it was just kind of one of those moments of frustration. I get it. Mm-hmm. So she was like, you don't help me, I'm going to call my dad. And I said, well, you call your dad, man, get him on the phone. Like I was like daring her. She actually calls her dad. And then she calls him right in front of me. I'm like, oh damn, Suegro's gonna be mad. And she gets him on the phone. And and I can see her like, yeah, daddy, no, he doesn't get up with the baby, and then he doesn't help me with the baby. And okay, I love you, daddy. And then I'm sitting there like, I don't know what just happened, dude. I don't know what just happened. And I'm like, what? He goes, and then she wouldn't tell me, and she just, kind of gets a baby and goes back in the room, and I'm feeling bad. So later on it came out, she's like, hey, I said, what did your dad say? And she goes, well, I called him, and then he goes, and I'm telling him that you don't help with a baby and that you don't get up. And he's like, whoa. Does he work? Yes. Does he beat you? No. Does he take care of the home? Yes. Does he do his job outside? Yes. Then you go back and you take care of that baby and stop calling me about this. And so it's one of those things that it's like, again, we're very traditional.
Right.
It may not be the roles that everybody has, but I take my role very seriously. She takes her role very seriously, and it just works for us.
Yes, y'all are very complimentary. Like, both of y'all are a really great team. And, that's one of the things that, I don't really think that I realized that the success of the firm is also, very much so based off of Jessica's background and her entrepreneurial spirit that like her family has.
Don't tell her that. She's going to ask for a raise, dude. No, don't tell her that. And also, I've fired her 3 times. She just refuses to leave. So I was like,
I'm not going to let you fire me today.
You're fired. She won't leave. She just literally sits there staring at me. I'm like, I think I fired you, ma'am. You can see yourself out before I call security. So she's like, yeah, she won't leave. Yeah, her mom fired her too from the restaurant. Really? Just FYI, she's got a bad employment history. She didn't put that on her resume.
I mean, she seems like a pretty good rehire too.
She didn't put that on her resume. She'd been fired by her mom 3 times, but yeah.
That's funny. And then so let's talk about John a little bit. John Ramirez, because he was the guy that put the WAN ad out there. He's also, I think when you look at Martinez and Associates, he's definitely the associates part of it, because I think John just really has a really great understanding of the business aspect itself, how things run from an operational standpoint, and he seems like a pretty sharp guy. What's that dynamic been between you and John?
It's been very complimentary, man. It's been, we found each other at the right time, and honestly, one of those things and he said this actually in our very first interview. I remember him telling me this kind of, nod, wink. I think he kind of saw what was going to happen, and he's been in the industry for years. And the only difference between John and I is that I had the ability to go to law school. He basically, like, if you look at the Army, there are non-commissioned officers, the sergeants, the master sergeants, and then there are the officers. The only difference between the two is one has a degree. That's it. Kind of the same thing here. John has as much knowledge as most high-level attorneys about this industry because he's done it so long. He's boots on the ground.
Right.
And I, like I said, came into the industry and brought a different perspective, of trial work and things like that. So when we met, it was just a very complimentary relationship, and he's an office manager, so that means that he handles a lot of the day-to-day with the boots on the ground employees that we have.
Right.
So his knowledge, my knowledge, it just really did create a good dynamic, and as long as at least at our firm, what I truly want is a team of superstars, and I don't say that as an advertising gimmick. I've always said this even to the troopers. You need to know your job your job from the ground up. You need to know absolutely everything about it. You need to have a good background in it so that when you're asked to do your job, you can make those decisions, not independently, but you can make the best decision possible, and you should have that experience. So it's one of those things, it's a bottom down approach, meaning that I'm handing authority down to you for you to be a better employee. I can't give you motivation. If you're not self-motivated, there's nothing I can do to make you motivated. This probably isn't the place for you. But I want you to have enough knowledge that you can make not an independent decision, because the law is a little bit different. It all has to be run by the attorney. But at the end of the day, you should know how to handle the situation through your experience and the things that we've taught you. So it's kind of that mentality with, again, our pre-litigation, our litigation. I am not telling you what to do on a daily basis. I expect certain things out of you, and I don't know how you get it done. Well, I do know how you get it done, but I don't direct how you get it done on a day-to-day basis. I just expect this at the end of the month. And I expect, number one thing is always, always, always communicate. Because even in the law, and again, this is just my tenets, my philosophies, we're still customer service, man. It's no different than Pizza Hut.
Absolutely.
So at the end of the day, there's some great attorneys in San Antonio, and honestly, it's verifiable. There's some great attorneys in San Antonio. The public that's getting inundated with, all these personal injury attorney ads and things like that, they don't know the difference unless they've been through the experience. But one of the things that I always tell my staff is, look, they can go get ice cream from anybody, man. They can get this service from anybody. They can literally call any law firm out there. What needs to distinguish us is the level of service we give them. Just like you can get pizza from anywhere, bro, or ice cream from anywhere. The thing that makes it different is that experience that you had while you're getting that ice cream.
Right.
And again, if I'm, and honestly, I'm not, this. This is probably, San Antonio personal injury is probably one of the most competitive markets of any industry in any city in the entire country. This is I always call it the mecca of personal injury because of where we're positioned and the type of attorneys we have here, and it's verifiable, bro. It's not me going, oh, well, San Antonio is great. No, look at the numbers, look at the verdicts, look at the attorneys. This is one of the most competitive markets in the country. And at the end of the day, for us to have even a chance of success, we have to do something different. My thing is, I think we're extremely competent and extremely good at what we do, but what makes us different and what I push on the staff is, you're not allowed to speak to a client or have a conversation with a client that I wouldn't have, meaning that they've never seen me blow up with a client or have an ugly conversation or not deal with the situation or not listen to a client. And if I don't do it, I don't expect it from you. So if I hear that you haven't been returning communication, that's a problem.
Right.
If I hear that you haven't been listening to a client or that you're not listening to what they're saying, we're going to have a problem. Because again, that's one of the tenets of our business success, whatever you want to call it. That is important to us. And it's, again, bottom line, and I think, just as a person in the world, I think we got to listen to each other a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, so going back to the firm itself, you got John, you got Jessica, you, and somebody else that you've brought up kind of throughout Mark, what you've been talking about. Well, Mark and everybody else, right? Because you do. I mean, I've seen the entire staff is fantastic, right? But the underlying person back there, the foundation of it all is God, because you've been bringing up God, and I know that you are very religious, and you've brought him up several times throughout kind of your journey. What is that? How does religion play a role in your life? And then how does that also, one thing that we haven't talked about yet is how much you give back to the community. And I've always said, like, man, you're doing so much. People really just don't understand how much you actually give back to the community that you serve, that you're already serving. Like, how does God play a role in all of that?
Well, I think that religion gets a bad name because, just like anything else, people fly under a certain banner, do things in the name of, and again, that banner ends up getting a bad name. So it's not so much religion. I am Catholic, devoutly Catholic, but to me, it's more of a relationship. And again, that's what faith is in God. It is truly a relationship. Like, again, if it's not a relationship, you don't believe that he exists. He was a living, breathing human being that came to earth and died for us. And again, we can get into that whole dynamic, but to me, it has been an interrelational a journey, because I can look at this again, the first question you asked me, where are you from? I can look at this path, bro. Hindsight 2020, I'm looking backwards going, oh yeah, how'd I get here? Well, that doesn't make any damn sense. You know, I mean, that literally doesn't make any sense. You did what? And then that doesn't make any sense. And when I look at something, I always say this, and I teach RCIA for incoming Catholics, I say this constantly. God doesn't speak. Well, if God had to choose a language, the all-knowing, all-powerful master creator of the universe, is he going to speak the King's English? Is he going to speak the King's English? Is he going to speak Spanish? Which one's he going to speak? You can't contain him to that, right? So literally his language is miracles, because we are hard-headed. We don't see the things that he's saying to us because we just simply refuse. If it's not something we can grasp, we're not going to believe it, right? So he literally has to speak in miracles, otherwise we don't get it.
Right.
So I look back at my life, and when something doesn't make any sense, but still it has a resolution, you know, like, you know, what's happened, what I've been blessed to have happen in my life, and I look back and I go, that's God, dude. Do you understand? So to me, that reality and some of the blessings, people are like, oh, that was such a hard life. No, that was a blessing, brother. To have been in the situations that I've been in, to have seen, you know, a lot of the violence and a lot of the poverty that I've been around. So I think that seeing that type of pain, seeing that type of violence, seeing that type of, you know, death, if you want to call it that, and drugs and all of those things, when you know that that's a reality and you know that you're going to die, the rest of this crap doesn't matter. Like what we're finding out about coronavirus. Now people are like, hey man, I don't care about I care about my life. Right. I've always known that. Right. I always know that life is more important than the things that we surround ourselves with. So because we're going to die and I'm going to have to stand before my maker, right? Because I'm made by somebody. Because I know I'm going to have to stand there. I think I've almost been there. You know, that's what it feels like, at least. I do things not for the back patting. You understand? I'm not gonna be able to say, God, you know, I did give $500 to the food bank. I mean, help me out. Or you know, as I'm dying, you know, I'm sitting on my deathbed going, you know, give me that Wells Fargo account. Let me look at that. You know, before I go, I got to see that account one more time.
Let me just look at all of those zeros.
And I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how much fame you have. I don't care how much power you have. You're going to die. Definite. Right. I can say this. I'm letting out 100% death rate. There's a 100% death rate, and you're going to stand before somebody whether you want to or not. So the things that I do aren't for back patting or to say, look at me or what have you. Which is when you ask me, let's talk about it. I'm like, nah, bro, let's not. I'm good with where they are. But that's the reason. Again, it has to be real. The relationship's real. The life that I've been given is real. The blessings that I have are real. Well, guess what? In return, the things that I have to do are real. You understand? It can't be, you know, kind of the stuff that, hey, I've got about $5 left over. I wasn't going to do anything with it. Here you go. You know, here you go. I've been and it's in the Bible. Of those that are given plenty, plenty is expected. So the more I'm given, the more I'm expected to give away. And it's not giving it away. It's basically, and this is something that people, again, people that aren't religious don't realize. But the church isn't a building, man. The church is you and I. It's people. Do you understand? It is, spirit is in people. So at the end of the day, again, people are who you're supposed to take care of. The church, yes, I do give to the church. I want his place to be beautiful, right? If it's going to represent him. But at the end of the day, it's more so about what I do for my man, my fellow man, even if I don't like him, right? So I make it a point not to try to fight with other attorneys, because I don't want them to get the impression that's who I am. Do I? Yeah. I can't stop myself sometimes. You know, I'm not. Again, I still have that inherent aggression. Sometimes I cannot put a muzzle on it. You know, but at the end of the day, I try to live this life with absolutely everybody. More so those angels that, you know, that are walking amongst us that we don't know who they are. You know, homeless shelters, the homeless. Honestly, people in Africa that I have. You know, relationship there that, you know, there are some villages that we've been helping. I mentor people. I'm associate judge at the juvenile court. You know, again, there's just several different charities that we've given to. So I just try to live the word. Unless you put the word with action, it doesn't have that much effect. I can read you a book all day long, but if I'm not showing you how it actually plays out, then that's just a bit brook, bro. That's a fairy tale. You understand?
Yeah.
You have to put it into action.
Right.
So that's just what I try to do, and I don't preach to people, and I could never be. I respect the guys that are on the corner, beating the book. I can't do that.
Yeah,
that's not my calling.
Yeah.
That's not my calling. I'll show you through my life.
Yeah, and I mean, you give monetarily, and then you also give of your time too. So I mean, it's not like you're just saying like, oh well, I don't have the time to do it, so here's a check or whatever. But you do that when people need help, and then you also give of your time too. So I think that's kind of noble in its own respect. Let me just take a little bit of a, just digress here a little bit. For whatever reason, man, you always get upset with me when we do stuff. And
I get upset with you quite a bit. You're gonna have to narrow that down, brother.
Okay, the tie thing. Whenever we do a shoot,
I found out what it was.
Whenever
man.
we do a video, and if I don't tell you, you're like, make sure my tie is straight.
You remember when we released the taco video, and I told you, hey man. No, go ahead. Release it, Jerry.
Hold on. So hold that thought, because I'm going to just tell you something right now. For whatever reason, somewhere between when we started and now, you have a gold piece of glitter right here on the side of your... Right here on the side. I don't know how you got it, but it's right. It is right here. So I'm just saying, because on camera... Yeah. You've got a... I don't know if
it's my beauty mark, brother.
I'm telling you. No, it's a piece of gold glitter right here, dude. I'm just telling you.
I was going to say I shit excellence. I'm spit gold, baby.
Gold is just coming out of your mouth. Baby. I'm just letting you know, because when you see the video, you're going to be like,
I spit excellence.
How come you didn't tell me about this gold piece of glitter?
It's the gold that comes out of my mouth, man.
It's on the other side. It's on this side.
I'll get it eventually. As long as it's not mustard.
It's not mustard.
Or jelly juice.
Yeah, I'm just letting people know it's not a piece of food or anything, right? It is a piece
jelly
of
juice?
Yes.
It's donut juice.
Yes.
I steal donuts and I eat them in the closet by myself.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Well, okay, so I wanted to definitely say that. The other part that you mentioned too is we are in the middle of COVID, so I don't know how long this video is going to last on the interweb space. But part of the reason that we're outside is because we can't be indoors because of COVID things, and so people are here. I'm sure that you can hear the birds and stuff like that, and like the rooster in the background and those things. So I'm just kind of illustrating the picture of it all and why we're out here. But taco video.
Yeah.
Taco video. So you had a billboard out there, and it was you and Mark and Damon and Rick, and I don't remember if you brought it up, somebody brought it up, that it was like, it looks like a Goodfellas movie poster board.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where the idea came up of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we created a video where it's like you in this like lawyer movie, and then we do this like little swap of things.
It was and so I'll tell you exactly where the thought came up. I don't know if you remember, it was me, you, Penny, and my friend Zach Borrego, who was wanting to interact with you. And we're sitting there at lunch. We'd had a, like our ad meeting, and then I wanted to introduce you to Zach to do some writing content for you.
I do need to reach out back to that guy.
Penny did bring up, hey, you know what would be funny? You know what I've seen? And then it just kind of went from there. And that's where Taco was born.
Yeah, Taco was born there at lunch.
Yeah, and not the idea specifically took some time to come up with, but that's where it was born.
Yeah.
That was the umbilical cord around the neck time.
Yeah, that was fun. So the community involvement, all of the things that you're doing within the community, you also teach your sons soccer, right? Like you're also
well, I mean, so the biggest thing that I've realized is the only legacy that I'm going to leave, and not that it matters because I'll be dead anyways, but I guess it goes back further than that. Let me tell you another embarrassing story. So I'm not kidding you, man. I absolutely loved football. That was my first love. Like that was the first thing I realized after, going through the divorce and realizing, I didn't really have that much confidence. I started realizing that athletically I was able to do some things. Like it just kind of happened, and then I started building off of it. Like I did a backflip on a trampoline just because I was like, I don't care. Boom, did it. And on a trampoline, it's not like I did one for real. But it just kind of, I remember that moment happened, and then my brother was like, holy crap, you just did a backflip. I said, yeah, it wasn't that hard. You just got to commit to it. And then I realized, like little things started progressing from there. And then, so it was around that age, we couldn't afford for me to play football, when it wasn't free. So, because the uniform cost and the joining fee cost, and $5 was a lot. So I couldn't play football, like in Pee-wees or anything like that. Plus I was a little bit chunky, so they didn't have like the extra large uniforms for me. So, when I started in 7th grade, that's when I started kind of looking into playing sports. I knew there was a way to kind of get my aggression out, and then I started kind of building confidence, and I realized I'm kind of good at this. But we started moving around. Not shortly after that, we started moving around, so it wasn't like I had somebody to really teach me the better parts of the game, right? And again, I was kind of quiet, so I wasn't, and it was a weird dynamic at the time with my family. I just kind of stayed to my own, so I didn't really have anybody to ask, how do I get better? So I was just trying to figure things out on my own. I'd lift weights on my own downstairs. I'd try to work out on my own, running and lifting weights. And I remember kind of begging in my mind, like I wish somebody would tell me, hey man, you could be a lot better player if you run through this wall. Now go run through the wall. Like I was like, yeah, I'll do it. But there was nobody there, I felt, to kind of teach me that. So I was just trying to figure things out. And if I would have had the internet back then, like I would have started researching best workout, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't. This was pre-internet. So I remember I couldn't find enough materials to read. And I'm banging my head. What can I do to get better? I'll do it. I'll work out all day. I don't care. Like I'll do it. And I remember watching a movie that I loved, Vision Quest. And Shoot was walking with the log up the stairs, and he was getting strong. I was like, I can do that. I can walk up the log. Oh, damn it. We don't have any bleachers. I can't find a log either. Well, damn it. So I remember there were woods behind our house in Germany. I started running around back in the woods with the biggest stick I can find.
Really?
Yeah. But it was just kind of dumb. I was just a kid trying to figure out how to get better, and I figured this was a way to do it. And then, of course, my friends would see me and they'd tease me, not really make fun of it, but they'd tease me like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I don't know what else to do, man. Like, somebody help me. So, believe it or not, a reoccurring dream of mine is now that I'm a little bit older and I've figured things out, like I'll end up back in high school, and I'm in my mind, I've got my mentality, but I've got the body of a 16, 17-year-old, and I've always kind of been the same size. I didn't grow after 16. And I'm about to start a game, and I know what that's about. It's about me having now had that experience to have been successful at that age, and I know how to do it now. You understand? And unfortunately, that time is gone. I don't sit there living in the past, but one thing that it did do, because I'm very happy with where we are in my life, but one thing I do is I've always kind of committed to my children when I had them, I will teach you those things, even if you don't want to learn them, that I was never taught. Like, I'll share with you the knowledge that I'll picked up, and that's kind of my biggest, that is my biggest mission in life, to teach those kids what I know. Now, you don't have to do what I do, and trust me, my older son is nothing like me, and my younger son is a lot like me, but at the end of the day, they are their own individual people with their own individual talents. So you go your route, and I will teach you everything that I've learned in this life. And at the end of the day, you don't have to do what I did, but you got to do something. So again, the primary thing isn't so much soccer. That's what my younger one picked up, but it is that involvement. My time is supposed to be spent on my biggest blessing, which is my children. They have been. I am their ward. So it is my job to teach them those things that I know. And unfortunately, Diego, the older one, or fortunately, he's man, that dude is just got it in the head. Like, he's got it.
Yeah.
Like, he figured it out.
Yeah.
So he and I have long conversations, especially when I'm driving, about just certain things. We'll talk about issues of the day. We'll talk about why things happen. And I just want him to understand how his daddy is. You don't have to be like me, man.
Right.
You just have to understand why I am the way I am.
Right.
So, and that'll help him, and I talk to him a lot about habits. Because like I told you about the beginning of law school and the beginning of a practice, it is those successful habits that distinguish us. So you can have it in the brain, but you don't work hard.
Right.
Ain't gonna happen.
Right.
If you can have it in the brain, which means you have talent, but if you don't have discipline, ain't gonna happen.
Right.
You can have it in the brain, but if you don't have perseverance, it ain't gonna happen.
Right.
If you don't have faith, ain't gonna happen. Do you understand? I mean, there's so many things that go into, I don't care if he wants to be a veterinarian, which is, you know, kind of the flavor of the day, or he wants to become, you know, some sort of biologist, which is now whatever he wants to do. Take those tenets of success with you. That's all I can teach him, man. And I wish somebody would have showed me along the way, but honestly, I really don't.
Right.
I wouldn't have figured it out if somebody would have tried to tell me.
Right. Yeah. You know, there's a book. I'm sure you've read it. It's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it's
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, in the book, there's a part in the book that says, you know, to know and not to do is really not to know. And
that's deep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, but it's like you can know all of these things, right? You can know exactly what you need to do to have a successful career in whatever it is, or you can know how to do certain things. But if you never do it, I mean, then do you really know it? I mean, it's how useful is that knowledge if you're not putting it to use? Right.
And that's you know, again, you hear, you know, it's wasted talent. There's nothing so sad as wasted talent. And that, I mean, again, it's just cliche. It doesn't mean anything, right? But think about it, bro, because unfortunately, I look to family members knowing full well, golly, man, you had it, bro. You were born with it. And then for one reason or another, it didn't manifest itself. Or I look to friends, or I look to certain, and I'm not talking about anybody in particular, I'm just saying I've seen that ability, that blessing, that gift wasted because it wasn't coupled with all of those things that are necessary. So it's sad to see when you see somebody that has so much talent and they don't believe in themselves,
right? Or
they feel they haven't been given the opportunity, which we'll wait for the Bigfoot, the monster truck to drive by.
Yeah.
But I've seen, you know, they just give themselves, like I said, they could have been so much more if they just would have seen, you know, what was in front of them. And I can tell you right now, I can say that it wasn't like a lot of opportunity was given to me looking back. But again, I think I was given as much opportunity as anybody else. Now, again, that doesn't mean I've lived everybody's life, and I'm sure that there are a lot, you know, much more hard knock stories out there, so that maybe they can say I wasn't given the opportunities, but we're all being given something, man.
Right.
I truly believe that.
Right.
I can point to, again, you know, people in third world countries that they're still given an opportunity to do something with it. So I just think you've got to grab it at that moment, and there's an element of fear and an element of doubt, but again, I mean, we get one go round, bro.
Right.
So I mean, that's kind of how I see it, man.
Yeah, and you know, I think that there's a lot of people too that when they look at the cards that they're dealt with, you can look at it two ways, right? You can take a look at the cards that you're dealt with, and you can say like, man, this is not the best hand, you know, to play off of, and so a lot of people look at that hand as like, you know, a waste, or they don't do anything with it, right? And so they're really looking at the things that they don't have that could make that better. And then you have the other part of it too, where that you just do what you can with the hand that you're dealt with.
Well, it's poker, man. It is poker, and I'll put it to you this way, man. And Adrian knows this. We talk a lot, and he goes, "Dude, you always have a story." And I said, "Man, because that's the way that people learn, brother." So one of the hardest trials, and I don't want to, you know, again, lawyer this up, but I think about this a lot. One of the hardest trials, one of the trials that I'm most proud of, is probably one of the hardest fact patterns that we've ever had to deal with. And I remember I had referred it out to an attorney who literally gave me back the case and goes, "I'm getting out of this one, brother. This one, I'm not touching it." And I remember going, "Man, we're screwed. I hope they make a settlement offer." What ended up happening was that, and I didn't know this at the time, when we ended up signing this client, he was visiting from out of town. And he told us he was just visiting, looking for work. Well, my man ended up being a pimp. He was actually visiting for more girls in San Antonio when he got into a crash. Now, it wasn't his fault. The crash wasn't his fault, and his injuries weren't his fault, right? But when you put that in front of a jury, along with the fact that he's in federal prison now, and he was in prison for something that is what they would call a crime of moral turpitude, and it wasn't just, you know, pimping. That when a jury's going to hear our client talking over the speaker and know that he's not there because he's in prison, and it comes out that he was pimping when he was in town, people aren't going to forgive that. They're going to be like, "I don't care how hurt he is.
He's
They're getting
morally
zilch.
wrong.
And we're up against a very good insurance company with an attorney I respect very much, a defense attorney, and he is going to come after it. Like, I already know him, and we'd already had a trial together. Like, he's going to come after it. And we're like, damn, we're going to get our asses kicked. So I remember Damon and I just started kind of game planning it. I'm like, look, we got to go. We couldn't draw a better venue. We couldn't draw a better judge. Let's just go. So at the end of the day, what ends up happening is that, we start talking about it during the beginning of the trial. Hey, you're going to hear my guy. He's going to be testifying over a speaker because he's not here. He's in jail. Let's talk about that, and with the veneer panel, which is what you draw a jury from, right? And of course you get the hems and the haws, but again, they don't know what he's in jail for. Mm-hmm. Like, I know this defense attorney's coming out this fact to bring it up. Why are you in jail? Mm-hmm. So knowing that aggression, we just kind of found evidence to block the fact as to why he was in jail. Not that he was in jail, but why he was in jail, because again, I understand it may be morally repugnant what he was in jail for, but at the end of the day, it had nothing to do with the fact that he was in a crash that wasn't his fault and he was injured. Mm. Those two things have nothing to do with one another.
Right.
The mixture is what was dangerous, and that's what he was trying to bring out, but we found evidence to be able to keep that specific thing out, right? Mm-hmm. So the jury never knew what he was in jail for. They didn't know he was in jail though, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it was the right ruling. So what ends up happening was that because he was so aggressive about it, our guy actually was a highly intelligent guy, and he could keep his emotions in check, and he just talked about the facts. Mm-hmm. And the jury heard it, and this guy was coming after him about jail, and you didn't pay your taxes, and you blah, 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 blah. All right, cool. They still didn't understand why he was in jail. They ended up thinking it was tax evasion. And ultimately, they could forgive that. Mm-hmm. Because again, it was during the recession. So it's like, okay, yeah, maybe he's in jail for this. Right. What ends up happening, Bigfoot came back.
You were right.
Yeah, Bigfoot came back.
Because of the lake, right?
So what ends up happening is that the jury just weighs it based on the fact that he was in a crash, wasn't his fault, was injured, and they put all the other stuff aside, and we end up winning that case and getting a verdict that really nobody expected, when honestly, even I thought we were going to get zeroed out to no end. Like, I thought we were going to owe money. Mm-hmm. Like I thought I was going to have to pay somebody just to close this case out. And it kind of left, the judge and the defense attorneys wondering, what the hell did you just do, man?
Huh.
And again, it was circumstance, it was luck, it was hard work, it was thinking things out, it was all those things that you bring to a successful practice and a successful business, and try to bring into a successful life. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it was one of our best victories because we were given literally no shot. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones I'm proud of. I always say that, look, as personal injury attorneys, we all have those cases where, they're in the 7 figures, maybe even 8 figures. Those cases, honestly, they sell themselves, man. Mm-hmm. Meaning that you don't have to do amazing legal work to make $1 million off of somebody that's died. Mm-hmm. You're not driving a really, really badass car when the car is already made for speed. You understand? You're not doing a lot of work.
Right.
You take one of these damn Yugos that has a 4-cylinder engine and you drive it at 200 miles an hour. Then you're a mechanic. You understand? Right. So that I look at those cases and I go, that kind of shows me that the things that I've learned, we've put into practice, and thankfully we've been successful with it. But I count those as bigger victories than the big ones. Mm-hmm. Why? Because those big ones, all I basically had to do was get out of the way.
Right.
These we had to work up, and it's one of, there's a few cases like that where I'm like, yeah, it might not be the biggest verdict, but at the end of the day, that's my proudest work.
Right.
Why? Not because, again, it was because, again, we were given no shot.
Right.
Now, there are some altruistic stories of people that we've helped. We've gotten, big verdicts and small verdicts, but at the end of the day, some of the smaller ones, we were helping people. One lady, honestly, we got her $1,200. And I remember going, it's embarrassing. I think it's a crap verdict. I'm pissed off. Mm-hmm. And she's crying, and I thought she was crying because,
she got
sorry,
$1,200.
Yeah, we got $1,200 for her. Well, she was crying because she was happy. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she was a sweet lady. Mm-hmm. And she goes, well, my husband has got cancer, and they just told us he needs to have this study done, but we got to pay for it out of pocket, and our out of pocket was $1,200. And I was like, wow. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's the kind of stuff when you kind of know you're on the right path. Yeah, I'm not going to put that down on our advertising that we only got $1,200, but that's the kind of stuff you remember. And that's when you know you're on the right path. And there's been a lot of clients that have come back and said, Mr. Martinez, you got me what I needed right when I needed it. Mm-hmm. And you're doing things the right way.
Right. And is that the most fulfilling thing about what you do?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'll say it this way: as far as fulfilling, yes, you know that you see the hand of God in what you're doing, right? And also as far as fulfillment is what I'm supposed to be doing, what I love doing. Yeah, on that scale as well. It's just, man, honestly, during COVID, we can't get in front of a jury.
Yeah.
And it's literally, I don't know when we're going to do it again. So I'm sitting here going, I've committed myself to every day doing something to make me a better trial attorney, whether that's be reading, studying, looking at videos, thinking of lines of cross-examination. Like, I've committed every day I'm going to do something to be better when it opens back up.
Right.
But as of right now, honestly, I'm sitting there in the bullpen warming up for an indefinite amount of time.
Right. Like, you don't know when the next game is, right?
Right.
The season's been canceled so far. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's got to be tough. But I mean, at least you're working on self-improvement every day.
Right.
So with regards to that, right, like the things that make you better, as we kind of wrap up here, is there like a specific quote that you kind of live by, or what is your favorite quote that you think?
Trial work, life-wise, what are we talking about?
Just life in general. Like if you could really share a quote that really kind of sticks with you, that has like good resonance with you, whether you apply it to life, whether you apply it to work life, whatever it is.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll split it up because again, that's kind of a one of those questions that's going to keep us talking for until it gets 100 degrees out here. So, trial wise, I'll split it up. Trial wise, I always kind of say this, attorneys that believe that by talking, they're convincing somebody really don't understand trial work. I'm not changing anybody's mind. And let me do this little exercise with you, brother. Who's your best friend? Who's the person you trust most in life?
My wife.
Okay, cool. If I said, hey, Jerry, guess what, man? I'm sorry. I don't mean to do this, but I just had to tell you, last night I was out and I saw your wife having a drink with another dude. What would you tell me? And on top of getting mad, what would you tell me?
Thanks.
Do you believe me?
I mean, maybe if it's somebody that I really don't know.
Well, what if it's just my neighbors telling me?
Oh, then I would be skeptical.
Right. But he said he's seen your wife on your Facebook. It was her for sure. What do you say to that? My neighbor said it.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, but again, like I said, I mean, he knows what she drank. He was sitting right next to her. Like, he knows it was her having a drink with another dude last night. What would you say to that? My neighbor said it.
I don't know.
Well, do you believe my neighbor?
Not really, because I don't know your neighbor.
Right, exactly. But you do know your wife and you trust her, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the thing. At the end of the day, if you believe something, if you are emotionally connected to it, if you trust in that thing, do you understand? I can't convince you against it. So if you believe in your heart, if you believe in your heart that this dude is not telling the truth, guess what? There's no amount of lawyering I can do or say. There's no amount of pontificating I can accomplish to change your mind. You are emotionally vested with that person that you love, and I'm not changing your mind against that, right? Against that fact. So in trial work, again, what we're doing is we're building an emotional bond with the jury so that they can build that relationship with the client, our client, right? And it's not my talking that does it. It is what they see in themselves reflected in that client. And I'm basically, by talking too much, I'm ruining those moments. So for instance, if somebody's been hurt to the point to where they're in a hospital bed and they can't work for 6 months and they can't pick up their kids and they can't hug their wife and they can't go to work and they can't provide and their whole life is wrapped up in that, right? I'll show the jury that so they can identify with it, because guess what? I mean, we've just been talking for about an hour and a half. I've been there, brother. I've been broke. You start telling me that story, I see that dude, and I see myself in it, and I want to help that dude.
Right.
That's an emotional bond. Do you understand? And by talking too damn much, I'm ruining that moment. Do you understand? And a lot of attorneys think that with big, pretty words, that they can change minds. Or they think that by simply being on a billboard, they're going to change minds. Brother, you don't understand trial work, because again, that at the end of the day is the way you ruin a trial. Get out of the way, man. Let these moments happen between people. Let them see themselves in those moments. And again, usually you'll get the verdict that you kind of want out of this. But I'm not doing I don't pat myself on the back when I know I have a great client that's trustworthy, that is not a liar, that is a hard worker, that's tried to do the right thing, that's raised kids, that's paid his taxes, that doesn't get in trouble. Like, again, I'm not doing amazing work by simply showing this guy. He's doing the work. So it's just one of those things where I don't understand a lot of the back patting attorneys do about their verdicts. Man, that was this dude. You know, we just needed to get out of the way. That's not, again, it's not hard to drive a Ferrari fast, and I say that all the time. That dude's a Ferrari. Just let him drive himself. You know, so it's just one of those things where, again, that's why I don't. It leads to kind of a humility in verdicts. I have to put them out there because I don't want to be Israel Bissell. But at the end of the day, I need people to come through the door, but I don't like throwing numbers out there, and I don't like convincing people or telling people that everybody's case is the same. Because again, if you're getting $1 million, you're either crippled or you're dead, and you don't want to be that dude.
Right.
You know, so again, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing when you see these commercials on TV. When you walk into an attorney's office, but I think your attorney should tell you that. But anyways, that's my trial philosophy. Life philosophy is really, again, kind of those tenets, man, that I was telling you about.
Okay, so yeah, those tenets that you were talking about, like I guess
faith, strength, perseverance, talent. Those things put together, I think, and discipline. You put those things together again, and I think there's not a whole bunch that you can't accomplish, but I think they have to all be aligned. So again, I can't control anything, and I have to understand. Again, it's like the serenity prayer. Grant me the wisdom to know, change the things I can, to know and then basically know the difference, right, between those things I can change and those things I can't change. If my life philosophy is kind of based around those things with faith at the beginning. And honestly, you're finding during coronavirus shutdowns that and you can read articles on it, people are coming back to prayer and they're coming back to base, because again, ultimately our strength isn't in ourselves. And again, religion is a different talk for another day, but at the end of the day, I mean, I think a lot of people are coming back to that. Well, that's kind of the bedrock of my life, of our family's life.
So when you talk about, or when you think about your life as a whole and kind of everything that you've had to go through, from the umbilical cord, from the beginning, from the
damn umbilical cord,
from pre Desi, right? From that type of perseverance to you come out as a preemie. Things from the onset are already, where it just seemed like you were already being born with challenges already from the get-go, and to where you are today. And in my eyes, I see you as a success because you live a very well-balanced life. You've got a great family, you've got, a wonderful wife, great boys, a fantastic practice. You surround yourself with really great people. You're doing well in the community. Financially, you're doing well. You've got a very nice and well-balanced life. To me, that's success. But, throughout all of those things to where you are today, and as we're going through all of this COVID stuff too, that presents its own challenges. But what would you say to somebody who is going through like those particular struggles from a mindset perspective of trying to persevere beyond some of those struggles, because there's a lot of people right now going through COVID that are struggling, right? So what kind of advice would you give those people based off of your life experience?
So to me, those people that are going through those challenges right now, it's kind of like being in a straitjacket, and the more that you're twisting and turning and yelling and fighting, you're actually tightening the straitjacket. That's the way I look at it. And I've been there, single, in a place where I don't know what the future's bringing, broke, like the more you twist and fight and twist and fight and twist and fight, the worse it actually gets. And unfortunately it creates even more pressure, the more pressure you're putting on yourself. To me, honestly, and this is kind of how we spent our time indoors, guys, this is going to end. Regardless of what you think, regardless of how it feels, this is going to be over one day. It may be a year from now, it may be 2 years from now, but this is going to be over.
This too shall pass.
We've been around as human beings for countless years, dude. Thousands, if not millions, possibly. So at the end of the day, again, this is going to pass, and most likely we're still going to be here. You understand? So I would say this time, again, if you're in a cave, and you do feel cornered, and you do feel the dark coming around you, embrace it, man. Don't struggle, embrace it and quiet down. And kind of, to me, it's almost like a monk going into the cave of himself. What I like to do is honestly just slow down and take time on the little things. Watching my sons play with their water balloons. My workouts have almost been I hate to say it this way, but it's almost like a spiritual activity. Like I'm just slowing down and really kind of concentrating on myself and the things that I'm doing to make my body stronger and better. I slow down with my meals. I slow down with my prayers. I make sure that I'm, again, slowing the mind down, because again, we're wrapping ourselves in all this despair, which is why we're planning on doing kind of a podcast as well. And if we get wrapped up in the despair of our mind and the despair that we're seeing on the news on a constant basis, it's going to take you down. So guess what? Slow it down, turn it off, and just kind of retreat into the cave of your mind, but in a more spiritual way. Just slow down. And I found that slowing down is kind of taking the panic away. So with 2 young ones, with all my parents still living, thank God, with my brother still living and sometimes needing a little bit of help with with certain things, with the office, a staff of over 20, with my wife, my in-laws, all of those things that I feel responsible for helping. Like if I allowed myself to, one of those things enough is anxiety filled. You understand? Just running an office and figuring out where the next 6 months are going to take you is anxiety filled enough. But again, I have a family, I have kids, I have a wife, I have brothers, I have mothers, I have a mother, I have parents, step parents, in-laws, people that I'm constantly on the lookout for, as well as my neighbors, So at the end of the day, if I allowed myself to, I would literally run my mind crazy thinking about all the stress
that comes along with it.
Right? One of those things is enough, brother. Just being a trial attorney is stressful enough.
Right.
But again, there's so much more. What I look at and what I do is simply realize, again, what can I control? I can control how hard I work. That is it. And I'm going to give my best effort with the time that I have, and I'm going to just slow down the thought processes and make sure that I'm spending time on myself, reducing the anxiety however I can, but also taking care of those things that I can take care of. And I've let my staff know, because we made a commitment to them. We're all basically in this boat together. I ain't going to start firing people and creating unemployment statistics. We're going to hold on to everybody as long as we can. But it takes you guys. You've got to row your own water. You've got to paddle your own water. You've got to do your own job. I'll do my job. I'll keep you guys employed. I'll do everything I can, but I need that same commitment from you. And again, we're going to get through this on the same boat together. And when we hit rough waters, guess what? Paddle harder. So control what you can control. I'll control what I can control, and we'll get through this together. And that's kind of the way I see all of this, man. Whether it be family here, we're all doing our part, even the young one. And with my work life, man. So that's kind of been what's worked for us. I don't know if it's a secret of success for everybody in getting through this, but that's been working for us during kind of the lockdown.
Awesome. Well, I know that I'm getting pretty sweaty. Sun's kind of coming up.
You're making the sweat.
Oh man,
the sweat smiley face.
Oh yeah.
You get some under the chest,
yes,
under the pecs.
Yeah, it's good.
Right at the belly button.
And then this café con leche was amazing. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your time today, Desi. Really appreciate you, man. I know that you say that a lot to other people too, but genuinely appreciate you.
Same here, brother. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers, my friend.
Me. Oh, no more.
Oh, till the next one. Till the next one. All right. That was good, man.
What time is it?
It's an hour. I'm guessing at about an hour and a half.